All right, so we are finishing it up. I'm going to do one last frame here and then run an animation test. See how that goes. I want to make Skeletor laughing but kind of fading out. Take him down to 40% opacity, maybe even 30. And then clear the background even more. Move the mist. Clear out the background. And then this will be my last frame, at least that I move from assets. The last one I bring to the stage. Hold down Option, go to Layer, Merge Visible. Last time I'll go through this process. Command A to select it all, Command C to copy it all, click on the stage, Command V to paste it in. And now I hit Command S to save, go back to my assets and just clear that last frame. S to save that. And now I'm going to go to the timeline. So I go to Window, Timeline, not just for an animation test, but to see if I can finish my animation. So I'm going to click on the timeline window options, make frames from layers, drag the first white background frame to trash. And then what timing do I want for up until he's scared? I want it to be kind of slower. So I'm going to do 0.3 seconds for these. And then his world gets kind of weird and it slumps. So as the face is starting to slough off, I'm going to do 0.25 seconds, just slightly faster. And then as it starts to fall off, I'm going to do 0.2 seconds. So for these, and then let me try 0.1 for all of these, or maybe 0.15. And then after that, I'm going to go back to 0.2, 0.5. Oh no, I'll just do 0.2. All right, so let's see how that looks. Oh, that's too fast for him laughing, but that's really good for the falling of the face, but I got to slow it down at the end there. So that timing all works. And then his laughing is just too fast. So I'm going to click there where he starts laughing. And we're going to slow it down. So there I'll make it 0.2, and then starting here I'll make it 0.3 again. That's better. And then he fades out. And you see how it kind of sets to reset that way, because the Skeletor kind of fades out and the background resets to its original colors. All right. So that is my finished GIF animation. It would be cool if I had Skeletor's head like floating kind of more centrally. But it's pretty central. It'll work. And I can show you one last thing I can do. This is called animating on the stage. So yes, you can set these different frames, but you can also select a frame, like my final frame here, and I can duplicate it, right? And that just means that takes extra long. I can delete it, right? It's just like editing a film. But this is one of my favorite tricks, especially if it's a hard jump cut from your last frame to your first frame. You can do tweens. Now, tweens can only be very simple in Photoshop because it's not as complicated as like Flash or Blender or an animation program. But if I hold down Command, I click on the last one, and then I hold down Command and I click on the first one, I now have the last frame and the first frame selected, and then I can click on this, which is the tween function. It looks like kind of a ghosting ball. And I can make 3 frames, or as many frames as I want, between these. So this is my last frame here, right there, and then it creates 3 frames. Now those frames are simply cross-fading. So I can have Skeletor fade out even slower, but I do have to set it up. So what it means is that in each of those frames, both the top layer and the bottom layer are turned on, but I need to set the bottom layer to be 100% in both, or in all 3. So I just do that, and now you see how he's fading out really slowly. So I'll just start it from here so you can see that transition. Ooh, nice and smooth. Fades into the mist. So play it through one more time. Make sure this is what I want. Yeah, that works. Okay, so now Command S to save. The stage file shows you the video in millions of colors, right? In high def resolution. But we need to save it as something that will go onto Canvas, an online format for your animation. To do that, you say File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. This is where you get the most control of your GIF animation. So it's not Save As, it's File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. So all of those of you with finished GIF animations that you've been playing through on your stage, you need to do this. File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. This will save it as a new format. It will not overwrite your stage PSD. Instead, it will open up your GIF animation options. And this will show it to you at full size, 100%. And my favorite settings are these. Selective color. You can play around, but I think selective gives you the best 256 pixels. Because GIFs are limited by only having 256 pixel colors. You can't have any more than that. That's the max. You can make it smaller, but we want the max. And then I like this quality to be bicubic smoother. Then I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to save it to the desktop just so I can see where it is. And now it's going to be Karl Assignment 3 Stage Skeletor GIF. Because it's a GIF, it won't overwrite my PSD, but just to be safe, I'll get rid of the stage and just put animation. Saving it to the desktop. Now, how do we test it? Make sure our GIF worked. Here's the GIF. This is an online format, so I'm going to mark it orange, just like we do with JPEGs and PNGs. So this is the 3rd online format we've learned, and it's the last of the raster online formats that we've learned, right? JPEG, PNG, and now GIF. So how do we test it? You can't just double click it or it will open up in preview in a strip, right? But you want to test its timing. And so I have 37 frames in my animation, way more than 9 that was used for the storyboard. So how do you test it? You right click it and you open it with a web browser. This is the only thing I ever use Safari for. Just because Safari is nice and clean. But you'll see how it just plays automatically. Now if there's a little change you want to make, this will run a little bit faster than it does in Photoshop because it's supporting not as much memory, right? And that's 8 by 8 inches at 100 pixels per inch. Yeah. I'm okay with it. Okay, so now I can put it to my canvas. So I open up the assignment, I find where I've posted my storyboard sketch, or I start a new post and I post my storyboard sketch. And this is the second requirement. I'll edit. Remember, I don't want you to make multiple posts. I want you to just have one post with that you can edit until it has all the requirements. And requirement 2 is going to be your GIF animation. Finished. as much as you can. I'll put that in quotes. By deadline. And then underneath that, I go to my desktop. I find that orange GIF, the online format. I drag and drop it in. And I don't want it to fill the screen, right? So even though this is at 100 pixels per inch at 8 inches, and that is a screen resolution, I still don't want it to take up the full discussion. So I'm going to shrink it to be a little bit smaller, a little bit more than halfway. And then I post. So now I have the first two requirements. The last requirement is the refined storyboard sketch. Now, what if something really bugs you? And what bugs me is that Skeletor is just a little bit off to the left, right? So how can I fix that? How can I center Skeletor? While I'm in my stage, I'm going to say file save a copy, and I'm going to call this one center stage. Big fan of that movie. Okay, now I'm going to close these. These are done. Save them. My stage and my assets, close them. They're done. Now I'm going to open up this. This is to get an alternate, right? My center stage, because I think this will just be slightly better. And all I'm going to do is crop it, holding down Shift. This is to show you that you can crop an active animation. And I'm going to center Skeletor on there, right? Now, it will still play through, it will still look great, but now he's centered. Problem is it still 8 by 8 inches by 100 pixels per inch? No, it's 7.3 inches, right? So I'm also going to use this time just to make little changes. I'm going to slow everything down a little bit. I'm going to do 0.35. Then see, 0.3. Just slow everything down by a half fraction of a second. And then 0.25. And then 0.2. Because remember, everything's a little bit slower in Photoshop. And then 0.25. And then I'm going to slow down his laugh up to about this point. And it's going to be 0.35. Now my average is usually about 0.3. So this is going to look slightly slower than when it's finished. But I didn't quite like how jittery it was. Slightly faster. Okay, so now I'm going to save my center stage one, but I'm also going to go to image size, and even though this will blur my pixels a little bit, I'm going to force it up. I'm going to resample it up to be 8 by 8 inches at 100 pixels per inch. So these are things you can do even while you have outputted animation frames. You can still crop, you can still change the resolution, and sometimes that's necessary. All right, what's next? How do we make the GIF of it? I go to File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. I've already set up that it's selective, that it's bicubic smoother, and now it's just going to save with the different name. Now it's center stage, and I don't need to type anything in. I'm just going to show you that it's a GIF to the desktop. And now I check it. It's here.